Heel plant is the position where we see the front heel get firmly planted. Heel plant is the end of our positive move or our linear move. And this is where the hitter will fully transition into rotation. At this point, the hitter establishes his front hip as a pivot point for all rotation. The head will stop any further forward movement, but the body will continue rotating and transferring weight into a firm front side, all the way through contact and extension.
Creating and maintaining the correct posture is essential to getting the most out of your swing. We've used lines drawn from the inside eye to the belt buckle to illustrate how the posture changes and the weight shifts at key positions in the swing. The most significant changes in posture occur between the negative move and heel plant. These posture changes enable us to control the speed and the timing of our positive move and our weight shift throughout our swing. On the screen we have Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds. We've moved them to the negative move position where we want to see that their weight is into their back leg. And we want to see that our line drawn from the inside eye to the belt buckle is angled backwards towards their back foot. You can see that both Alex and Barry are in a good attacking position, ready to make their positive move. If we move forward to toe touch, we want to see that the hips or the belt buckle is shifting underneath the head into a more athletic position. It is crucial at this point that this line be straight up and down or still angled backwards for us to make an efficient transition into rotation. At heel plant, we want to see that our line is now reversed and angled forward, that our belt buckle is now in front of the eye, enabling our head and body to stop any further forward movement and transition fully into rotation. If we go back and we look at the movement from the red line to the green line, this represents our positive move. And the movement from our green line to the blue line represents our transition from our positive move into rotation. And from the blue line forward, the body rotates underneath the head and continues to transfer weight and energy into the front side, all the way through to contact. All of these lines illustrate how precise our major leaguers are at controlling their positive move and their weight shift throughout their swing. If any of these lines do not match yours, please go to the lesson on posture. Rotation should begin somewhere between toe touch and heel plant, and the rotation will be activated or triggered by our back elbow. If we look up here at Alex Rodriguez, you will see that he will go into rotation almost at the onset of toe touch. His back elbow will start working down underneath his hands and moving forward, sending a signal to his hips to go into rotation. If we look over here at Jason Giambi, he will not go into rotation until almost heel plant. But again, you will see his elbow working back underneath his hands and moving forward, initiating the hips into rotation. The action of the back arm and the back elbow work very similar to the way we would throw a baseball sidearm or the way we would skip a rock across a pond. The back elbow will start leading back and our hips will want to go into rotation almost automatically. In fact, if we get the action of our back arm correct, we shouldn't have to worry about the rotation of our hips. The principle to look at in your swing is to look to make sure that this elbow closes the gap on this hip prior to the onset of rotation. If we move our video forward a few frames until the hips start rotating and draw a second line, you can see that the elbow has closed that gap, which is going to allow us to have a good connection of our upper body and our lower body later on in our swing. Another good way to view the principles of rotation is to look at the back view. Here we have two film clips of Alex Rodriguez at toe touch. If we move forward in the swing just a few frames, you can see on the screen on the left that Alex has already made the decision to stop his swing and to stop his elbow, keeping his hips from going into rotation, even though he has continued through to heel plant. On the screen on the right, you can see that the elbow has closed the gap on the hip and the hips have gone into rotation. There are three principles of rotation that we need to remember. The first one is that the back elbow initiates the forward swing and activates the hips into rotation. The second principle is that we do not want to go into rotation until we have reached a 50-50 position, or at least 50% of our weight is into our front side. The third principle to remember is that the front hip joint is the pivot point for all our rotation. This is where all the action is. All the rotation occurs around this point. If any of these principles do not match your swing, please go to the lesson on rotation.
In the last segment, we touched on the weight distribution at the onset of rotation. We stated that we did not want to go into rotation until at least 51% of our weight was into our front side. In this segment, we want to talk about the transferring of the remaining 49% into the front side through rotation. Most of our major leaguers stride to about a 50-50 position. As they go into rotation, more and more of their weight will transfer into their front side. Here at heel plant, we see that the front side will start to firm up or straighten. And it is important to note that we are not standing up or raising up to take the bend out of our front knee. It is the rotation of the hips that is taking the bend out of the front leg. A great way to see this is from the back view. In this example, I've moved Ivan Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez to the heel plant position. I've outlined the bend in the front leg and drawn lines at the waist and at the top of the head to illustrate how the rotation of the hips will take the bend out of that front leg, and that we do not stand up or raise up to artificially straighten that leg. This is what we mean by firming up the front side, and it's accomplished through the rotation of the hips. If we go back to the toe touch position, we can see how the remaining weight gets transferred into a firm front side during rotation. Up here you can see the back elbow working down and the hips going into rotation. And you'll notice the back knee pinching in, not spinning, but pinching the weight and transferring the weight into the front side. And as we move forward, you will see that about 95% of the weight is transferred into the front side before the bat ever gets into the strike zone or at bat lag. And if we continue on to contact, you'll notice that any remaining weight will be transferred into the front side. This is evidenced by seeing the back foot dragging along the ground or it actually being in the air. It's not important what the back foot does. What's important is that the hips rotate all the way to the point of contact and that the weight gets transferred into a firm front side. If we go to the front view, we'll see another example of this. In this example, we have Vladimir Guerrero on the left and Troy Gloss over here on the right. Both of these players exhibit good principles of rotation, but their back foot will look very different when we get to contact. If we move forward, you will see that back knee pinching, And as the hips go into rotation, you'll see the heel come up or start to turn or pull forward like it does in this example, all the way through to contact. And at contact, you'll notice that Troy Gloss's foot really hasn't rotated the same way that Vladimir Guerrero's has. It is important to note that the hip turns the foot. It is not the foot trying to turn the hip. In other words, the action of the back foot is a result of the weight transfer and the rotation of the hips, and is really a non-teach. We do not push off the ball of our back foot in an effort to get the hips to rotate. In fact, this often causes players to lunge and raise up when they near contact. You will see the weight go to the inside of the back foot, and then when the hips start rotating, you will see the foot turn and pull forward. The final part of rotation is the stopping of the hips at contact. In this example, we have Mike Piazza on the left and Maglio Ordonez on the right. I've moved them both to the contact position and drawn a line down the seam of their pants to illustrate how the hips will stop at contact. If we back up a few frames, we can see that the hips, as they come forward, will come all the way up to a point where the front side firms up and the hips stop rotating, sending the energy up through the body and out through the arms and accelerating the head of the bat. It is the stopping of the hips that sends the energy up through the body and out through the arms and ultimately into the bat, allowing the bat to accelerate past the hips. The easiest analogy to help us understand this is the principle or the analogy of the whip. It is the stopping of the handle of the whip that results in the acceleration of the tapered end or the tip of the whip. If the hips don't stop, it would be like moving the handle of a whip in a constant circle, and the tip of the whip, or the bat in our case, will never be able to catch up and accelerate past. If we don't rotate our hips, we won't be able to generate as much energy. And if we don't stop our hips, we won't be able to transfer that energy efficiently up through the body and out through the arms to accelerate the bat.